I love math, the way the path goes on the graph, how it functions. Cause great discussion in the math class, shall put no textbook before the math class.
Given 2x plus 5, write the 0 that corresponds to each factor. This is a factor, and common hint is a lot of times when you're factoring, the factor has parentheses around it. That's why I just drew that. To find the 0, you're going to set it equal to 0. Subtract 5, divided by 2, x equals negative 5 halves. This is a positive 5 halves. That's wrong, wrong, wrong. So the answer is E. Let's go over question number 2. Given x minus 4, write the factor. Factors usually look like x plus something or x minus something. That corresponds to each 0. So this is a 0. So what I'm going to do is just move this over. So I'm going to subtract 4. X minus 4 equals 0. And then this is what I want. Well, that's none of these choices, so the answer is E in this case. Tells you to factor completely there. Remember, to use Xbox, you have a couple of conditions. You have to have, number 1, a trinomial, which means an A, B, and C value. So here you only have 2, and then even if you did add a placeholder, the second condition is that you have to have half of the exponent. Half of 3 is 1.5, and you don't have that there. So therefore, you cannot use that. Therefore, if you have a binomial on your flowchart and you can take the cube root of each of those, then you have, in this case, the difference of cubes. Difference means subtraction of cubes. Well, what is a cube root? And now, if you use your calculator, mine's going to look like this. Math, and then go down to number 4, and then you can type in a number such as 64. Remember that number there is 64, not negative 64, and you get 4. So the cube root of y to the cube is y. Or another way of saying it is y to the third power is y cubed. 4 to the third power equals 64. Your A value is y, B value is 4. The formula for the sum and difference of cubes is always going to be the same. A, B, A squared, A, B, and then B squared. And then the math operations start with what you have. So this one is a minus sign. So you're going to have SOAP, same, opposite, always positive. And then you just substitute it in. And my A value is y. My B value is 4, not negative 4. A value is y, so y squared gives me y squared. A times B, 4 times y is 4y. And then B is 4, so 4 squared is 16. This is your answer. That would be choice A. Find the remainder. I gave you a polynomial, and then this clue right here. This tells you that f of x right above it. And then you can see that x is equal to negative 2. Then you're going to put in every x value, negative 2 with parentheses. And then don't forget to use PEMDAS, parentheses and exponents first before you multiply. So you're not going to do 8 times negative 2. What you are going to do is negative 2 to the 5th power, which is negative 32. Negative 2 to the 4th power times a gives you 128. Negative 2 cubed gives you negative 8, and then negative 8 times 2 is negative 16 plus 4. And if you add all those together, you get 84. Your answer is choice C.
Factor completely, you should always, I loved it because one student actually just wrote this. GCF. Every question that says factor, they just wrote GCF. Good idea, good idea. It does have a GCF. The GCF is, go a little quickly, faster, is 6x cubed. Remember, if you expand them all out, 6x to the 5th, there's 5x's, 4x's, 3x's, you'll notice that they have a 6 and 3 x's as greatest common factor. If you got to this point right here, then I gave you, I think, 3 points only. You got a 2 if you found just a common factor. Here in purple, if you make your X box, A times C is 3, B value is -4, your two numbers are -3 and -1, and they go there. So you would have to have this as full credit. Multiple choice, is x minus 8 a factor of all of that? Well, remember the question, it's a factor if your remainder is equal to 0. Well, how do I find the remainder? I can use the remainder theorem, I can use long division, but I'll use synthetic. So 1, -7, -14, 48. 1, -7, -14, 48. And then x minus 8, you set it equal to 0, add 8 to both sides, and you will get x equals 8. Synthetic division, bring this down, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, and add, then you get a remainder of 0. If you have a remainder of 0, then yes, it is a factor. So my answer is going to be, answers, yes, it is a factor. So that's how I would.
Given x to the fourth minus x squared minus 12, factor completely. So I have a trinomial. 1, 2, 3, that's an A, B, and C. And if I can take half the exponent, let's see if we can take half the leading exponent, x to the fourth, so the fourth, half of 4 is 2. This is good when both these conditions work, you can use x box. So let's do x box. Your A, B, and C, your A value is 1, so A times C, and 1 times -12 is going to be -12. And then my B value is going to be -1. Two numbers that multiply to be 12 is 4 and 3, and they need to add to be -1, so this one is going to be there, -4 times 3 is -12, add those together, you get -1. Now let's say you don't know the shortcut, just take those two values, they will always go there. Remember they're splitting the middle term. So the first term will always go into the top left. The yellow here, -4 and 3, are splitting -1, so you have to add an x squared, and the last term -12. Just take out your greatest common factor, x squared, -4, and then +3. And then double check by multiplying, and that works. So to factor completely, I have x squared -4 and x squared +3. But here, if you would recognize, you have to factor that one again. And that's why I drew a kind of a big space right there. If you had put a 0x here, you would have gone A times C is -4, your B value is 0, and your two numbers are 2 and -2. So to factor the red, it would be x plus 2, x minus 2. And then this one would just be x squared +3. What was the shortcut I was talking about before? Remember, when you're doing this x box method, you only have to do the x when a is equal to 1. If this number is greater than 1, you have to do both x and the box. So to summarize, a is equal to 1, just use the x, and if a is greater than 1, you have to use the x box. But if you forget and don't know that shortcut, you can actually do both and get the same answer. Alright, second step is now find the zeros. How do I find the zeros? Well, These are called factors. I don't know, an obvious way to kind of explain that is they have parentheses. To find or identify the zeros or solve for the zeros, or just solving, I'm going to set each of these equal to 0. And then you just basically solve each one of these. Subtract 2, x equals -2. Add 2, x equals 2. Subtract 3, x squared equals -3. How do you get rid of the power of 2 there? You have to take the square root. We talked about previously, if you take the square root of an equation, it's plus or minus. And then you have the square root of -3, and the factors are -1 and 3. Square root of -1 is I. So there, this 0 is x equals plus or minus I radical 3. Again, the reason why you have to write that plus or minus is because now if you take one of these, something like I radical 3 squared, I squared is -1, and -1 that becomes the square root that becomes the I radical 3 squared would just be I radical 3 times I radical 3, which is I squared times 3, which is -1 times 3, which is -3. So that proves to you, not in the red, but if you put in positive I radical 3 or negative I radical 3, it'll equal -3. So there's two answers that you can put in for x. Squared will give you -3. Okay, sketch the graph. Sketch it. Use my straight edge. I'm going to write the original problem down here just so you can see it. X to the 4th minus x squared minus 12. Alright, so -12 is my y-intercept. Let's write -12. And it's to the power of 4, so it's an even degree, like a quadratic. Starts up, ends up. Leading coefficient is positive, so your arrows stay that way. And then I'm going to take x equals -2. See what colors I got. And then x equals 2. Okay, now remember this is on the x and y coordinate, so this is the real number system. So there is no I in radical 3 on the complex, so you can just go ahead and sketch it. Now I should show some kind of turning point or extrema to there. Why is that the case? Remember, the degree 4 is equal to the extrema minus extrema equals degree minus 1. We learned that previously. Extrema equals degree minus 1. So if I have 1, 2, 3 extrema, and you add 1 here, you get a 4th degree polynomial. So that basically is telling us in a 4th degree polynomial, you have to have 1 less for the extrema. So if I just went here and did a quadratic, I wouldn't have enough extrema. And then that's how you graph your, looks something like this. Doesn't look exactly, but it's a W, and you should have 3 turning points.
Mathematics includes the study of quantity, structure, space, and change. Math can be so complex it could be considered strange. So strange equations could be rearranged. Don't even get me started on fractions. To multiply them is going to take a lot of action. But math can be simple, all it takes is practice. Your brain is like a muscle, make sure it's active.